So what's the big worry right now is Sharia law. And what is Sharia law but a state religion? So the Muslims believe women are put here by God to be subservient to men, that they are not equal to men. They're not equal under the law. So what does the Bill of Rights say? It says that everybody's equal under the law. And if states have to be based on rights, and you made the Bill of Rights the state religion, then it would be impossible to have Sharia law as another state religion, because it's incompatible, it's contradictory to the Bill of Rights. So what you really should do is join the ACLU and help protect the Bill of Rights, which is what the American Civil Liberties Union does, although you've got people afraid of it because the card-carrying member of the ACLU, as though that man he was a communist, because they think the Bill of Rights is a communist document. By the way, Korea, after World War II, when MacArthur wrote the Constitution of Japan, he divided up the big landowners' ownings so that everybody would have land in Japan, because they thought the communists were going to take over Japan. So to keep that from happening, they went ahead and broke up the big monopolies and made what basically is a communist country. So if you go to Japan from Korea and come back, you were then accused of being a communist and then tortured. And Amnesty International has been reporting this since the 1980s. I guess Amnesty International protects people's rights to freedom of conscience. We have this problem in this country where we have 900 military bases overseas. We're spending $1 trillion a year on 900 military bases. Trump just said today we could be paying as much as 90% of NATO's budget, which is $1 trillion a year. And NATO was founded by the Nazis, mainly General Reinhard Gehlen, in 1949, although he lost the war, wanted to create a famine inside the Soviet Union, starved 40 million Soviets to death, and enslaved the other 90 million. Gehlen started Operation Gladio to kill democratically elected leaders in Europe, including Moro in Italy. And they started these so-called they were spin-offs of the NATO army, but he said they were communist armies. He called them the Red Brigade and said they were kidnapping and killing democratically elected leaders. That was the Nazis. And as the Nazis retreated from countries across Europe, from Sicily, from North Africa on, they left what they called stay-behinds, who later got into the armies till he died in 1978. He ran NATO intelligence from West Berlin. He retired from, he was actually hired by Allen Dulles and the CIA, who hired 4,000 Nazis to work for the CIA, which had Kennedy killed when he signed the order to dismantle the CIA after the Bay of Pigs failed invasion in '61, in which George Herbert Walker Bush was in charge. So you've got descendants of the Nazis and the CIA went to Arab countries, formed ultra right-wing death squads. I'm sure the death squads in Iran were started by these Nazis, and then that got the Israelis over here looking for Nazis, and now they have their top spies here in AIPAC, the biggest lobby in DC, which routinely blackmails, bribes, and coerces congressmen to support Israel. You cannot get elected if you do not support the Israeli lobby, which has control of a majority of Congress and has been bribing congressmen to send Israel $3 billion in cash. This year they got $4 billion they're using to buy land on the West Bank. The Israeli Mossad has its top agents here under deep cover with perfectly formed passports, forged passports out of Canada, Canadian consulates in Toronto, New York, and they are or Netanyahu can come over here and tell Congress what to do, and they do it. So basically, the Mossad is running U.S. foreign policy, and they also have thousands of friends in every major city, and they control the entire media of North America, the entire continent of North America, including Canada, and they run 80% of their phony businesses out of Canada. If Israel wants to send a spy somewhere, they start a phony business where the taxes are paid and everything. They've got a letterhead. So they've got two guys. One guy is in Canada, that answers the phone, and the other one they send to the foreign country where they want an agent. So they've got their top spies over here under deep cover, collecting sex scandals, drug scandals, money scandals on congressmen on the cocktail circuits in D.C. and New York, and they basically are running drugs here, cocaine and heroin. They were running heroin from Thailand. Now 90% of the heroin's coming from Afghanistan. If I were Trump, I would shut down the Israeli lobby. I would shut down AIPAC. I would shut down the Israeli embassy. I would expel their diplomats or check to see if they're spies, and in which case they should be shot. So Israelis are systematically killing Palestinian men, women, and children. They're committing genocide, and in Gaza, the water is 95% undrinkable. They bombed Gaza back in the Stone Ages over and over again. They are keeping the people there prisoner and blockading the place, trying to kill these people off. So, meanwhile, the media here is controlled by the Israelis, so it's ignoring all of this. And Trump thinks they're our friend and ally while they lied to us to get us in Iraq. They're lying about Iran, and they want to bomb Iran, which is allied to nuclear Russia, which will start World War III with Russia, which is what Hillary was getting ready to do if she had been elected. So they're demonizing Putin, who's an Orthodox Christian. They're saying he's the devil. He's unifying the Orthodox Christian churches in Russia. I don't believe in the devil. I believe that's a fairy tale. The Israelis don't care about the Jews. They only care about Israelis, and they will kill anybody, including Yitzhak Rabin or an Israeli colonel, if he tries to start peace. And Rabin successfully was having peace talks with the Palestinians when Netanyahu had internal security killing and basically called him a rofer, which was a Jew who steals land from other Jews. And Rabin was not stealing land from other Jews. He wanted the Israelis to get back this land they stole in a war they started in '67, in which they killed 34 Americans on the USS Liberty, which was an NSA electronic surveillance ship, which had all their frequencies and heard them lying to the Jordanians after they preemptively struck Egypt and took the Sinai Desert to Gaza Strip. They wanted the West Bank, so they told Jordan that Egypt had conquered Israel. When Jordan sent troops into Israel, they took the West Bank. They were getting ready to take the Golan Heights from Syria when we told them we heard them lying to Jordan. And when we did that, they got mad and bombed the USS Liberty, killing 34 American sailors, which Trump doesn't have a clue about, and wounded 170. If Trump knew the Israelis killed 34 Americans because they waged war by lying and they lied to Jordan and Syria to steal their land after they stole land from Egypt. Since he's in real estate, I think he understands the idea of stealing land. I don't think he'd be supporting Israel. So although Trump is right to start peace in Korea, the people who are cynical don't believe there's going to be peace. These people should be accused of being traitors to the U.S. because they want war, they don't want peace, and they're like the Israelis. They kill people who try to start peace. These people are basically chicken hawks, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So you've got a bunch of people here on TV who are talking heads who get paid to basically they're under the pay of the Israelis or sponsors who are basically working for Israelis. But the Israeli lobby is it's got tax exempt status because they falsified their IRS form to get religious um, status for the Israeli lobby. Israel's the only country that has a lobby. No other country has a lobby. Greece doesn't have a lobby. France doesn't have a lobby, et cetera, et cetera. The Israeli lobby routinely blackmails, bribes, and coerces congressmen to support Israel. They collect sex scandals, drug scandals, money scandals on congressmen on the cocktail circuits in D.C. and New York, which they consider their playground. And between running cocaine and heroin here through the Southwest U.S., they're pretty much here under our noses. And as far as the Muslims go, they think the Arabs are stupid and divided, so, and they keep them divided by, for example, the Israelis kept the Iran-Iraq war going for 8 years. They told Iraq to invade Iran in 1980. We were allied with Iraq. I had Iranians in graduate school in math at WVU telling us that the war was kept going by us supplying weapons to Iraq. It turns out the Israelis were supplying weapons to Iran, and if we had another war with Iran, they would be arming Iran again. They were selling parts to F-14 Tomcat fighter jets through mid-level intelligence levels in Schleswig-Holstein, and they basically killed Huey Marshall, who quit cooperating with them, who was helping them in Holstein. When he did that, they ruined his reputation, caused him to lose an election. When he lost his reputation and power, he wanted it back and said they were going to give it back. Instead, they sent a team over to kill him who brought a wine bottle that put him to sleep and with something in it. And then they filled him full of barbiturates and put a suppository in him, which caused the intestinal flu, which caused a temperature rise. And then they put him in a bathtub full of ice in his room and induced a heart attack. So his wife knows he was murdered. The Swiss police don't know who did it. It's in Ostrowski's second book, The Other Side of Deception, the first book. By way of deception, he tells how they framed Libya on the Lockerbie jet bombing, which Libya didn't do. They got Reagan to bomb Benghazi in '86, and then they got Hillary to get NATO and Obama to do it again during his last term, in which case they killed Gaddafi. They tied Gaddafi to this bullshit, this baloney that Hillary ate. And you've still got the Israelis want to keep Russia as our enemy, so we will keep Russia as our ally. They didn't like this Gorbachev opening up peace with the United States, and then we wouldn't need Israel as our ally. The KGB didn't like Gorbachev because he wasn't hardline communist. Israelis wanted to get rid of him. They don't trust us. They think we'll make a deal with the Arabs over oil, and the Soviet Union was helping some Arab countries which were not friendly to Israel, because Israel has stolen the land that the Palestinians lived on for 2,000 years and don't ever plan on giving it back. So it will degenerate into an apartheid-like solution, which is what it's done already. The Israelis have built this wall, which has cut off water to the Palestinians. It's cut off their farmland, and the Palestinians aren't allowed to walk in the street. By the way, Trump is big on the Second Amendment and gun ownership. The Israelis do not allow Palestinians to own guns, and meanwhile they are killing Palestinian men, women, and children daily. There's 49 Palestinians killed every month for one Israeli. Other week there was reports 564 Israeli children. Palestinian children were killed for one Israeli child that was killed. I'm not for killing. I'm against all killing. I hate war. Against war. I believe the apostles stole the body. I don't believe in the resurrection, and I also don't believe Muhammad ascended into heaven on the back of a horse in a mosque in Istanbul. I don't believe in the resurrection. I believe it's the biggest lie ever told in history. I don't believe in the permanent soul. Don't believe in the virgin birth. I believe Mary was just a young woman. The word for virgin in the original Hebrew was mistranslated in the original Hebrew. The word that was mistranslated as virgin didn't mean virgin. In the original Hebrew, the word that was translated as virgin meant young woman. So Mary was just a young woman, and I never believed that God committed adultery with her anyway, and I don't believe in invisible things. I think the universe is God. Every person is part of the universe. Every person is part of God. Although I think everything's constantly changing. I think the universe is constantly changing. I think if the universe is God, then it's in gestation. So in a sense, God hasn't been born yet. So we're the most highly conscious aspects of the universe. We should consider our daily actions as important as though we were all emperors. Every person is an absolute center of the universe, absolute center of origination, and every person should do whatever they feel like doing whenever they feel like it. And all this crap about Trump can't do this, Trump can't talk to Putin, Trump can't go to Korea and start peace talks. All this is bullshit because everybody, there are no political experts. Okay, so these fuckheads on TV who pretend like they know something that Trump doesn't know. Well, everybody knows something. Nobody's completely ignorant. Trump isn't completely ignorant. He knows most people. There's nobody totally educated, including me or Trump, but nobody knows everything. But Trump can be wrong on some things and be right on other things, and he's wrong about Israel being our friend, but he's right about peace in Korea because we never should have been in Korea to start with. It was Nazis and the CIA that said Truman was soft on communism, that he lost Red China in '49. Truman said, I'll show you how soft on communism I am and invade Korea. So they got us into Korea, and then MacArthur, who took back North Korea from South Korea, he took back North Korea from the North Koreans from who had invaded. He invaded China, wanted to take back Red China. There was no way he was going to do that because Mao Zedong had run Chiang Kai-shek into Taiwan. And Chiang Kai-shek, by the way, was a jackass who really didn't know his ass from the hole in the ground. And Mao Zedong was okay until he shut down the universities and put China he killed intellectuals and persecuted and burnt books. He really fucked up China, but he turned it into a country that is now mining gold. It's minting gold coins. It's trying to start a world reserve currency if the U.S. currency fails, which it will when the bond rate goes to zero in Japan or here. All money, paper money, will be worthless. And the Russians, by the way, if we were allied with Russia, we would have gasoline at $2 a gallon. Trump thinks that every time the economy improves, the gasoline price goes up. If he wants the price to go down now from over $2 to $2, he should have peace with Russia. And there's no reason, if he can have peace with Korea, he can have peace with Russia, which destroyed some of Hitler's best divisions in World War II. If it weren't for the Soviet Union, we would be allied with Nazi Europe, because we were helping the Germans before Hitler took over. The capitalists in the U.S. and Germany wanted to take over the world markets. The Germans got greedy and wanted it all, so we split. That's why we went to war with Germany. The General Motors was making engines for one of the German bombers, the Ju-88, Junker 88, and made tanks for, General Motors was making tanks for the Germans until they got greedy and wanted it all, so we split. Then after the war, we got back together, and I thought it was strange we were allied with Japan and Germany after we fought Japan and Germany in World War II, and really didn't make any sense. My father fought Japanese in World War II. He was in the Philippines and New Guinea for 22 months. He killed Japanese, and they had invaded China. They had invaded Singapore. They had invaded all the little islands around Japan. Including Iwo Jima, where we lost a lot of people trying to take it back. The Japanese had invaded Manchuria in the 30s. They killed the emperor's son, the last emperor of China, who would have had a son who would have been emperor. They killed this baby as soon as it was born. The Japanese killed 17,000 Koreans. They enslaved 35,000 Koreans during the war. They had them mining coal for them and doing other hard labor. They said they were going to pay them, that they were saving the money to pay them at the end of the war. Instead, they had a plan to kill all 35,000 of them. We stopped them after they killed 17,000. That's going to come out in this peace treaty when North Korea finally signs a peace treaty with South Korea. There's got to be a settlement with Japan. I mean, Japan's going to have to pay repercussions or something to the Koreans, including the North Koreans. It's very strange because we were worried about North Korea dropping atom bombs on Japan. We're the only country ever dropped an atom bomb on Japan, but we did it to show the Soviets we would control Japan. There was no East and West Japan. There was an East and West Europe. There was East and West Germany. But there was no East and West Japan. And by the way, the CIA was flying U-2 spy planes from the Sakhalin Islands in northern Japan over Red China during the Cold War. And these Nazis started this UFO crap because they had spy planes flying over Red China and Russia, which started out as weather balloons with cameras, and some of them blew back into certain places in the U.S. where they were identified as flying objects by the CIA, which said they were unidentified flying objects or alien ships. All that was Nazi baloney. The Nazis basically Nazified America. I call it the progressive Nazification of America since World War II. Jesse Ventura is a few years older than me. He's a Navy SEAL. Says that that America is now a fascist country. Well, America has gone downhill since World War II, since the death of Kennedy. Nothing good has come from the death of Kennedy. We would have been out of Vietnam by 65. We wouldn't have lost 58,000 men over there. It was the most divisive war, the racist war since the Civil War. And basically, we haven't recovered from Vietnam yet, and we probably never will. And we never should have been there. It was not even a declared war. The U.S. has not declared. Nixon started the Volunteer Army in '72. The War Powers Resolution that was created to cut off funds after 90 days of hostilities, if the Congress didn't declare war, allows a president to send troops into a country to start a war for 90 days, and then comes to Congress, and Congress supports the troops, which allows us to fund wars that are not declared. So I would make a law that if the president sends American troops into any place without a formal declaration of war by the U.S. Congress, then he should automatically be impeached and charged with murder, actually, or high crimes and misdemeanors, which sending somebody to get killed in an undeclared war it should be an impeachable offense. So um, that would include Nixon, Clinton, who bombed Serbia with unappropriated monies. It was not a declared war, and the Serbs were expelling Muslims who they thought were Al Qaeda. And then we put Milosevic in prison. Those were Muslims that were being expelled who were harboring Al Qaeda in Yugoslavia. And Tito, who was a field marshal equal to Stalin, fought Nazis underground in Yugoslavia during World War II and basically helped us defeat the Nazis. So then he was dictator for 40 years. Well, I didn't have anything to do with that. By the way, Trump was born in 46 after the war, didn't have anything to do with Nazi Germany. He's not a Nazi. It doesn't matter what his parents did. He's better than his father. And his grandfather sold supplies to gold miners in the Yukon during the gold rush. So, but his grandfather died at 58 of throat cancer or pneumonia. So, by the way, his father lent him $1 million at high interest that he had to pay back very quickly, which he did, and paid the interest back. His father did not give him $30 million, and Trump never gave his children more than $300 a month. He made them work for the money, and all of his children are drug-free and do not smoke, drink, gamble. They they're basically teetotalers because Trump's brother died of alcoholism. Trump is a teetotaler. There is a saying, teetotalers can't be totally wise. Um, as far as being a Christian, there are no Christians alive today. The only Christian that ever lived was died on the cross, and it's the only evangel that ever lived. There are no evangels alive today. So Christ denied everything that today is called Christian. The established church of his day, the Pharisees, the hypocrites, um, all of that is what is called Christian today. So all of that was denied by Christ. So everything called Christian today is in reality anti-Christian. By the way, resist not evil and thou shalt not kill. All killing is wrong is basically Jesus' teaching. Love God and do what you will. God never killed. I mean, let's say it this way: the the commandment "Thou shalt not kill" has killed more people than any other sentence in history. But the idea that Jesus killed anybody never happened. Jimmy Carter never dropped a bomb on anybody, and he balanced the budget all 4 years. The last GOP president to balance the budget was Dwight Eisenhower. Reagan never balanced the budget the whole 8 years he was in office, and I think I think Trump should be balancing the budget. I think he's making a big mistake because if the Japanese bond rate goes to zero, which it's almost zero now, their economy will collapse. At which time our economy will collapse. At which time the world's economy will collapse. So all of this stuff will go down the toilet, and if NATO has its way, it'll start a nuclear war with Russia. It's put nuclear missiles, it's put anti-ballistic missiles in Poland that could be converted to nuclear ICBMs almost overnight, and basically could start World War III, or if you call the Cold War, World War III, and World War IV, Russia, which is allied to China. And if Israel has its way and bombs Iran, which is allied to nuclear Russia, the same thing. So if you hated World War II, you'll love World War III because or World War IV, or whatever you want to call it. You can kiss your ass goodbye if we go into a nuclear war. By the way, Eisenhower didn't want a conventional war with Russia or China. he thought he could contain the Soviet Union with nuclear weapons through NATO, through using our B-52 bombers. These bombers have been around since Eisenhower. We, really, they stink. They're full of shit, but we're still flying these B-52s. So the idea that you're going to drop a nuclear bomb or start a nuclear war, I mean, we were all the ABM treaties, all the treaties that Gorbachev and Reagan hammered out, Newt Gingrich destroyed when he was Speaker of the House. So there is no ABM treaty anymore. These missiles in Poland that NATO put there are supposed to be there to stop Iran, but they're really, Russia thinks that they're going to be converted to nuclear missiles and bomb Moscow, and it's a matter of time that they're going to nuke Moscow. You have fools in D.C. think they can win a nuclear war with Russia, and they think they can dismantle Russia and China. You've got 1.5 billion people in China and 300 million people here, and you think you're going to dismantle China? I got news for you. Chinese have been around for 5,000 years. Nobody's going to dismantle China. And if you think you can win a nuclear war, then you need to have your head examined, because you've got your head up your ass, by the way. So I think, you know, there's a saying Nietzsche has, may God strike the wicked blind. I would include the people who are working against peace, who want a war, a nuclear war. That would include the Mossad. By the way, the Mossad is greedy, lazy, selfish, conceited, fascist, out of control. They don't want peace. They want war, unconditional surrender. They kill people who try to start peace. So may God strike the wicked blind and deaf and dumb, and that would include them. So there's a $500,000 reward leading to the arrest and conviction of spies operating illegally in the U.S. I can give you an example of one, Shabtai Shavat, who was head of the Mossad during from 86 on until through 91, when they lied about weapons of mass destruction. They said Saddam was going to go nuclear and take all the oil in the Mideast. That was a lie. And they wanted to get rid of Saddam, Iraq's big army. They did have a spy, American spy at the Pentagon. They say they don't operate here since the Pollard affair. That's a lie. They basically had Larry Franklin working for them at the Pentagon, massaging old data, giving us false information about pre-war Iraq and Saddam. They wanted to get rid of Saddam and his big army in case he was replaced by somebody more anti-Israeli, more pro-Western. And he would have been replaced by his sons, who were allied with Jordan like he was, which Jordan is neutral on, or is moderate towards Israel, and is an enemy of Iran and Syria, which are Israel's real enemies. So now Israel wants to control the entire Mediterranean, which hasn't been done since Julius Caesar, I think, or the time of the Romans. In any case, Syria and Libya are part of that control, and they've already destroyed Libya. So, and now the civil war has pretty much destroyed Syria. And now the Syrians want their land back on the Golan Heights, where they found oil, and Russia is trying to enforce that. So there could be a war with Russia and Israel, which is allied with us, and it's a big mistake to be allied with them and let them drag us into war. They got us in Iraq. They're trying to get us to help bomb Iran. I think Trump already gave them our new F-35s. They sold our F-16s and 15s and 14s all over the world. That's why we needed a new jet fighter, and that's why we have the F-35. I think they wanted to buy the stealth bomber, and we wanted $1 billion apiece. They didn't want to pay that. But to wonder Trump hasn't given them stealth bombers. In any case, they stole the plans, the R&D research for the unmanned drone from the Pentagon. When the FBI counterterrorism czar David Zaddy called Larry Franklin at the Pentagon, who was a spy working against James Faith, who was number 3 man, who had Wolfowitz's ear, that he was feeding Faith a bunch of baloney about Iraq. That's why Cheney, who was listening to Wolfowitz, ended up getting Bush to invade Iraq. So Hillary, by the way, voted to let Bush have the power to invade Iraq. She doesn't know her ass from a hole in the ground. She's really a GOP Republican. She worked for Barry Goldwater, who was for segregation in '64, who voted against the civil rights bill that Kennedy wrote in '63 after Birmingham riots when Martin Luther King got put in jail in Alabama. She never really has changed her mind, and Trump was right. She had no plan to do anything except she was going to let Bill Clinton handle domestic affairs, who pretty much, he got NAFTA passed, which he said NAFTA we have to, but basically that's part of the deal that sent all the jobs to Mexico. So this idea that Bill Clinton knows what he's doing as far as the economy goes is baloney, and he's had a heart bypass operation and probably wouldn't live another 4 years. What's his name? Hillary lost powers. She didn't deserve to have it. So I worked against her, but I didn't vote for Trump or her or Sanders. I didn't vote in the last election. And now I'm hearing the Supreme Court will try to remove me from the rolls. It doesn't really matter because they haven't had anyone to run since Kennedy got shot. So basically all the people have been in power, except maybe Jimmy Carter, who didn't bomb anybody. But he made a big mistake with during the Iranian hostage crisis by attacking the hostage holders. So that he should have ignored the hostage holders. That would have put the onus on the students to do something else to get world attention. Instead, he lost 8 men in a chopper refueling thing during a sandstorm in the desert. By the way, Ollie North and Norman Schwarzkopf were in charge of that operation, and I hear they failed it on purpose to make Carter look like a fool, which he is. So, which he was, but that was used against him. So, so the Republicans have been talking about that ever since he was president, which was from '76 to '80. But the Soviets Brezhnev did invade Afghanistan in '79, and we did help, and the Israelis helped fundamentalist Muslim extremists in Afghanistan fight the Soviets, and you can look at that in Charlie Wilson's War. But basically, if we would have let the Soviets kill bin Laden, who wished he had died fighting the Soviets during that war, so he would have gone to heaven and got his 72 virgins, then we wouldn't have had to face him on 9/11. And look on my Facebook, Masterless Master 911, or no, see. Find why, 3 reasons why bin Laden attacked the U.S. Noam Chomsky's 3 reasons. It's under my Facebook. Find YouTube Masterless Master Trump and YouTube Masterless Master 911 and Noam Chomsky. What I have to say about Tom Brokaw. This is a long time ago, and what I said about Mitt Romney would never be president. By the way, Kane, that jackass in Virginia, who was Hillary's VP running mate, he will never be president of the United States. And nothing good came from the murder of JFK by the Israelis, the Chicago mob, and the the CIA. And you can find Who Wanted JFK Dead on my Facebook page, Daniel Anthony Russo, and you can find the JFK Murder Solved by the Books, along with other things about the Dulles brothers being traitors, and especially Alan Dulles, and all that's on there. So I have about 30 or 40 pages on Facebook, and I've got about 70 videos here. And I have to thank YouTube for letting live streaming happen, because this is first video or second video I've made in years. Okay, bye.